Well, hey everybody, John Ritlin here, and this is a retro review of TNA Lockdown 2009, one of my favorite TNA pay-per-views. I'm calling it TNA because it was called TNA at the time. I got this and a whole bunch of DVDs and t-shirts, including this one, when they did a warehouse clearance sale like a couple years ago. I think actually in very early 2017. And got a lot of merch for a really, really cheap price, and I'm actually very happy that I made those purchases. And this is a really, really good pay-per-view. Sure, not everything's perfect, but then again, what pay-per-view is. It doesn't matter what company, it doesn't matter what era. Every pay-per-view or every big show is going to have one or two matches where you're like, but overall you like the show. And that's what I did here. I really did enjoy this one. It has aged pretty well. Sure, there are a couple matches that were, and I'll get into that in a bit. You are going to see more retro reviews as the year goes on, a few from the TNA era. And yes, I know it's Impact Wrestling now, and I wish them nothing but the best, even though I'm not able to keep up as much on the current product as I would like, because I work and I'm covering too much as it is. But as I'm burned out on the current WWE product, and I want to reflect back on some older stuff, that's why I'm doing this, and I'll do ones for WCW and some WWE events and stuff like that. So I hope you guys do enjoy this. But if you guys have seen this event, please let me know in the comments what you guys thought, because I remember ordering this on pay-per-view and loving it, and actually still loving it, even with a couple matches that I didn't care for. So let's start. And the concept of Lockdown, of course, is all steel cage matches, but it's variations, stuff like that. You know, you can have battles outside or whatever, like in a street fight later, and just various others. So the whole point is there are variations of steel cages, but, you know, steel cage match concept, but it's all, you know, it's all encompassed in a steel cage, and sometimes hard to pull off, but I give them credit. I mean, nothing wrong with trying some new things, and this is pretty innovative. So let's get on with Team 3D with Words for Beer Money. Of course, we're in Philadelphia, you know, Team 3D, the Dudley boys, big, you know, got their big start in Philadelphia in ECW. There were a lot of ECW chants throughout that match and a couple other matches. Then we have Billy Corgan, lead singer of Smashing Pumpkins, and, you know, future, like, you know, executive in Impact Wrestling, I guess is what he was, and now he, you know, helps run the NWA. Good job trying to revive that, and hopefully he does. So he does a different rendition of Bullet with Butterfly Wings. Really cool video packages. The video packages actually for this were pretty fucking tremendous. Like, they really were good. This is when Impact was smoking hot as far as when they were drawing some big crowds and stuff like that and gaining some good buzz. And I know they're trying to build things back up, and hopefully they can. So, first match. Jay Lethal, Kiyoshi, Consequences Creed. Yes, Xavier Woods. Sheik Abdul-Basir. You know, You know him, just look up his name if you don't recognize him. Sean Davari, in other words. And Suicide, who I want to say was Christopher Daniels, because I know a few people played him. I know Kaz played him. I think Kaz was out with an injury, so I think Daniels pulled double duty. He was Suicide here, defending the X Division title, and then he would actually participate later in the night in the Lethal Lockdown match. And I hope that he got a little bit of a bonus, and I mean a lot of a bonus, for working two matches. So this was for the X Division title, X Division escape match. The idea is you know, whoever gets eliminated, you get eliminated by pinfall or submission until the final two, and then it's escape the cage. So it was basically two teams, and then Suicide was on his own because Sheik had his army. You know, like Kiyoshi was with him, and Kiyoshi I sort of remember, but I don't remember too much about him. Kiyoshi got eliminated almost immediately, like within a couple minutes. Creed got eliminated by Sheik. Lethal got eliminated by Sheik. And then it was down to Sheik and Suicide. Well, in the end, Kiyoshi tries to come down, tries to help out, tries to, you know, stop Suicide, but he does a Suicide ... dive and lands on Kiyoshi and a whole bunch of security. So he ends up winning just before Sheik gets through the door. So he retains the X Division title. Fine opener, decent for what it was. But then we then get Madison Rayne versus Sojourner Bolt, and I hope I pronounced that right, versus Daphne, personal favorite of mine, and ODB, also a personal favorite of mine. Madison Rayne, it's funny to see that Madison Rayne's back in Impact now. Good for her. Wish her nothing but the best. Bolt, I don't remember too much about. I don't think they used her all that well. Daphne is somebody they should have done better by, especially after, you know, she got injured in the line of duty. And they got ODB, and of course you had Cody Deaner there. I don't forget. I sort of forget that storyline. I mean, what I remember is it was some Southern guy that won a night with ODB, and then just hung around with her as his as her, you know, like, I guess, second hand. Maybe he spared his mullet to help her. I mean, I don't remember. Got nothing against Cody Deaner, just I don't remember too much about his character. But yeah, it was a Queen of the Cage match. I guess it was like a #1 contender thing or something like that. It's 4 knockouts, 2 knockout matches tonight in cages. It was alright. It wasn't horrible. It was a bit of a mess. I mean, they had their moments. ODB pinned Sojo. It was alright. And then we get No Limit, which was, forgive me, pointing right back here, Naito. Naito and Yujiro Takahashi were in TNA for a little bit. I mean, this was when New Japan and TNA had their, had their symbiotic relationship or talent trading relationship, so to speak, until, Impact kind of fucked up the whole thing, with Okada. That was a great idea, but weird to see Naito and Yujiro. Yujiro also has trimmed down quite a bit. And not that he was big here, but he trimmed down quite a bit. Just weird to see Naito, like, back at the time. It was like, hard to believe this guy would go on to compete for the IWGP Heavyweight Championship. He did well, and it was them versus LAX versus Motor City Machine Guns, Alex Shelley, Motor City Machine Guns, easy for me to say, Alex Shelley, and Chris Sabin. And LAX, of course, was Hernandez and Homicide. And it was the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Championships, and the Motor City Machine Guns had them at the time. And it was pretty obvious it was going to come down to either them or, No Limit. And it was what it was. It wasn't bad. It was fast-paced from the beginning. Great double teaming. Hernandez does this like border toss, so he like picks him up by the neck and just throws Sabin into the cage. Unfortunately, just Sabin just lands on his friggin' head. I mean, I'm not saying it's Hernandez's fault. The bump was just bad, but it looked like he landed kind of bad. But then things pick up. Naito ends up getting pinned by Sabin after a double team move, and it was fine. It was a fine match. Motor City Machine Guns are often forgotten about as being a pretty good goddamn team. But then we get Matt Morgan versus Abyss in a Doomsday Chamber of Blood match. Not good. This wasn't. They had an uneasy alliance. And then Morgan turned heel. And Abyss was going to this therapist to try and get his violence under control. And he wasn't going to use weapons. And he wasn't going to do this and everything. And this is during this whole thing where Abyss had been a bit. They had done this thing where Abyss got drugged by his doctor. It turned out to be Dr. Stevie. Dr. Stevie revealed himself. Gross. And it was Stevie Richards, by the way. And yeah, this wasn't good. The idea is in this cage match, your opponent had to bleed. You had to bleed to be pinned. So if you were bleeding but your opponent wasn't, you could only be pinned. And if both guys were bleeding, all bets are up. If the ref was bleeding, pin him. No, that would have made the match this just wasn't very good. Matt Morgan's good. Abyss is good. This just wasn't. This is where the pay-per-view kind of came to a screeching halt. It was all right in parts. They did have some Sugar Glass come out. I assume it was Sugar Glass. I hope it was Sugar Glass because it looked kind of bad. It was also very, very shiny and pink. So I'm thinking it was. There was a nice crossbody by Matt, land on the ref. I mean, and Matt was careful, don't get me wrong, but yeah, Dr. Stevie, so Stevie Richards comes down, tells Abyss, don't you use weapons, don't you use the weapons. Well, thumbtacks get brought out anyway, but then Abyss gets attacked by Stevie, and then Matt Morgan puts him on the tacks, 1, 2, 3. Yeah, this wasn't very good. This is when they basically humiliated and marginalized Abyss's character. They had too many layers to it, too much bullshit, and a lot of it came down to Russo's writing. Which is kind of giving a little bit too much credit to him because I'm not sure he could really write all that well. This was not very good. And then, unfortunately, things don't get much better. And there's nothing against two of the women in here, but you get Awesome Kong and Taylor Wilde. Remember her? She only lasted a few years in wrestling. But Awesome Kong, Taylor Wilde, and Angelina Love in a 3-way knockouts title match. Angelina Love had Velvet Sky there at ringside. Awesome Kong had Raisha Saeed, who I believe is cheerleader Melissa, if I remember right. And this is at least when Angelina and Velvet were necessary to wrestling and actually were over and could kind of do some shit. Yes, these are the same two that Ring of Honor has apparently signed to a contract in 2019. Well, they at least had him appear at G1 Supercard. I don't fucking get it, but whatever. The idea was Angelina would do anything to get the Knockouts title that Awesome Kong had. Taylor kind of did some shit, but didn't really get to do much. Awesome Kong used her strength, but then eventually got her hair tied to the cage because she had her hair cut before, like a little bit of her hair, but then got the rest of her hair tied to the cage, and Saeed could not, release her from there. And there's one point, it looks like Taylor's trying to go over, he either gets knocked over to Awesome Kong or something, but then gets kicked in the gut. And Angelina covers Taylor for the win. It's one of the limpest goddamn finishes, and nothing against the women. It was just a limp goddamn finish. Angelina did win the Knockouts title, cool, and then I think would feud with Tara after this. I think even in the Slammiversary 09. In fact, I got that DVD, so I'm gonna have to watch that at some point. But yeah, not very good, and it wasn't really the fault of Kong or Taylor. And Angelina really wasn't that good. She had better than Velvet in the ring, dear God. But it was all right. At least the heels did every dastardly thing they could to get the victory. And we get Team 3D versus Beer Money for the IWGP tag titles that Team 3D had, and the TNA tag titles that Beer Money had. Philadelphia Street Fight. It went all over the goddamn place. It went up into the crowd, up the stairs, near the, near the concession stand. Well, in the hallways leading into the arena, but it could have gone to the concession stand. Everybody's just doing, doing a whole bunch of big moves and everything, just beating each other up. Crowds chanting ECW. Sounded like a loud crowd. I think there was about 5,000 people there. I mean, I don't know how big the capacity is. I think the capacity for the venue actually was 10,000. So it was they probably hung a curtain down half of it, so it was about 5,000 people. But still, that's a big deal and a pretty big, pretty big turnout for a pay-per-view like this. Again, Impact was really drawing some big crowds at this point, and they had a lively crowd for this. There was some good stuff. Brother Ray starts bleeding and everything. Big shock. In 2009, and probably would be bleeding now. There was this there was this funny moment. Where Beer Money goes for their double suplex off these steel steps that they have set up, and they put Devon through the table, brother Devon, and put Devon through the table. But the problem is Rude. The momentum carries Rude. He just kind of rolls off the table himself, so it's almost like he DDTs himself off there. It was funny. And I love Bobby Roode. I love James Storm. They're an incredible tag team. I just found that spot kind of funny. But then, big bubble bomb off the top on the Rude. That was pretty brutal. And then a massive war, a lot of hard shots and everything. Good double team maneuvers. But in the end, 3D through the table. 1, 2, 3. So Team 3D now holds both tag titles, and I think they would drop them back to Beer Money at Slammiversary, if I remember right. They had a hell of a feud. They actually had a really great feud. But this is good. This is where the pay-per-view started to pick back up. And again, no pay-per-view is perfect. I'm not knocking any of the performers, but it was what it was. We then get Team Jarrett in the Lethal Lockdown match. Team Jarrett, AJ, Christopher Daniels, Samoa Joe with the weird, fucking goddamn weird ass tattoo that he had on his goddamn face. What the fuck were they doing with Samoa Joe? And Jeff Jarrett versus Team Angle, which essentially was the main event Mafia. Booker T, Kevin Nash with a massive elbow pad because he had a bad staph infection in his elbow. Scott Steiner and Angle. It was good. It was good. It was a fun match. You had Daniels and Angle start off. Booker got in next. Styles got in next. Really, the match didn't pick up much until you got, later on. And Lethal Lockdown, by the way, it's like War Games. You got, it's the finish up, though. You had Steiner in, then Joe in, and you got advice from Taz hidden backstage. And then Nash went in. Joe attacked Nash outside. Then Jarrett got in. But the idea behind Lethal Lockdown is like War Games. The heels would always win the numbers advantage. So after, they start for 5 minutes. Every 2 minutes thereafter, people come in, and usually it's the heel and then face, heel and face. And then once everybody's in, the roof drops down. Well, it doesn't drop down because that would kill everybody, but lowers down. There's weapons, and everybody beats shit out of everybody. It's fun, good, wholesome family fun. But the whole point with this is, the idea was Jarrett's allegiance was being tested. Was Jarrett actually going to be the kind of guy that everybody could trust? That his team could trust, or was he just swerving them? Because swerve bro. But it turned out that, you could actually trust Jarrett. Now, there was this cool spot between AJ and Angle. They were on top of the roof. Then Angle, managed to, I believe, low blow AJ or something like that, and then got back down. And then AJ's just on top of the cage. I wonder how I can get down. I can't possibly get through the way that I did before in this little, space between the slats. So I know what I'm going to do. The main event Mafia's down there. I'm going to dive down there. And he dived and broke through the roof and landed on everybody. Except he kind of didn't. They didn't really break his fall. The ring mat did. I hope AJ got a bonus for that because that looked like it kind of hurt. But we then get a guitar shot to Booker. I mean, all the weapons get brought out and everything. And after Jarrett had accidentally hit, I believe, Styles, not with a guitar, but with something else. He then finally got the guitar, was like motioning, wait, AJ or Booker? And he hits Booker with it, and then AJ covers 1, 2, 3. Team Jarrett's celebrating. Weird music. Lights go out. Weird music starts playing. What the hell is this car engine appearing on the Titantron, the big screen, everything? It was Bobby Lashley. And Bobby Lashley got a pretty big pop. Like Lashley, who had not been seen on wrestling TV since about July or August of 2007, due to the fact that WWE did dirty by him because the whole racism thing and the allegations and all that stuff. Not from Lashley, but towards Lashley. Good job. I wonder if you can guess who that possibly was. And maybe it wasn't Lashley, but his wife at the time. I wonder if you could guess who could have possibly said that stuff. It was probably Michael Hayes. Just a guess. But yeah, Lashley appears, points. Who's he pointing at? They didn't really go anywhere with this because he appeared a couple other times and then wasn't back until a few months later because he was also doing MMA at the time. But yeah, that was pretty interesting. Then you had Sting versus Mick Foley for the TNA title in 2009. This kind of reignited their 1991, 1992 WCW feud, which I actually enjoyed. I actually enjoyed quite a bit. The problem is, Sting at this point was about 50. And he was... I did another retro review, Spring Stampede 1999, where he was 40 at the time when he competed for the WCW title. And yeah, this match was what it was. I mean, Foley was like 43, 44 at this time, and it wasn't great, but it didn't need to be. But this is kind of where their main event scene started to kind of taper off a little bit. Because you did have some leg focus by Sting. He focused on Foley's knee, and Foley had the door locked because it's like, no, it needs to be by pin or submission. No one should be able to escape the cage. And then Foley tried to do that because Foley was a dastardly heel. Foley's time in Impact was weird. Like, I enjoyed it, but I also didn't. And it wasn't because he was a WWE guy going there. It just seemed odd because he really couldn't perform full time in WWE anymore. And he went there to wrestle still. When he shouldn't have. Because he may have been 43 at the time, 43, 44 when he won the title. But his body is more like 60. I mean, he beat his body to shit. So the whole point is, Foley does come back. Foley tries going through the camera hole, even kicks the cameraman out of the way. And then forces said cameraman to give him the barbed wire bat that just happened to be sitting on this little stand right here. Or a little stand right in front. And gets barbed wire bat. That comes into play. It gets used on him also. But then, they're climbing from the top. They're climbing over the top and trying to go to the floor. Sting almost does it. Foley drops down because Foley loves dropping from cages. And there we go. Foley is the TNA World Champion in 2009. Now, again, pay-per-views from 10 years ago. It was what it was. It was cool, and I enjoyed it. I don't normally like to grade retro reviews. I mean, I said that for Spring Stampede 99. I'll say B, because I did enjoy it, even with the matches that were eh. This was enjoyable. So yeah, give it a watch. It's actually well worth it. And the video packages are really nice because they catch you up really quickly on all the happenings and how these feuds got built and why these matches are happening. But anyway, that's what I gotta say. Agree, disagree with what I said. Like, share, subscribe. Twitter handle in the description. I'm John Ritlin. I will see you soon.